What's going on, everyone? This is Danger Ale. I'm going to do some sort of video tutorial on mastering vocals for you, as a guy requested it, so I have no problem doing that. And hopefully you'll sort of benefit from this, I guess, and I'll show you some tips of how to get a consistent sound out of a vocal track. So I'm just going to play this song here. This is called Fright Hopper by Matt Emery. I'll put it in my description. And it's just a little acoustic song, so I'll just play the first part of the main vocals for you.
Been a lover, been a friend, but I won't be back again. Oh no, been too quick to jump that train.
Okay, so I'm just going to run you through the channel strip here on the basic signal flow of what's going on. So basically, I guess the first thing you notice when I open this window up is the cutoff of the EQ. This is the main EQ. And basically, it's taking anything below 120 hertz and cutting it off, essentially. And you want to do that with pretty much every vocals, you know, whether it be 60 hertz or 80 hertz. You always want to cut off somewhere. In this instance, I used 120 because you really don't need anything lower than that. So that's the cutoff for the main equalizer. I have a gate on this as well, and if you don't know what a gate is, basically all it does is take the sort of the background noise and it just eliminates it, and it gauges this by a threshold. And in this example, I have a -32 threshold, -32 dB, I should say, with an attack of 11 milliseconds, and that gives me the result I want. But obviously, this is going to be different for your recording because you might have more background noise, or you might have, you know, a little bit less background noise. But when you're recording, you generally want to have none, virtually none at all, so you don't need a gate. But you know, I mean, it's helpful in most cases, especially when it comes to drums. It's a really handy tool. So there's nothing too out of the blue about this. This is basically the default settings for the gate. So I'm going to move on to the EQ here, which is below the gate. And it's very simple. I don't have anything adjusted, you know, to be tonally correct except for the treble here. And really, when I master vocals, I want to hear the tonal qualities and the air qualities of the vocals, because I think that's really sort of something that you really desire when you master vocals. And especially in my case, I have an SM58, and it's not the exact best mic for doing vocals, especially in the studio. But if you add some high end, it does have that response. So it's a good mic, I guess, in overall. But when you're recording with a large diaphragm condenser, it has more high end than you need. So you don't really, essentially, you don't really need to have that much treble. But in this case, I do. So that's just the way it is for me. I have a compressor below the EQ, and a compressor is almost always required, especially with EQ, because you're going to be doing tonal adjustments and you're going to be doing dynamic adjustments. And this is an example of a dynamic adjustment. I'll just go along here and show you this waveform, and as you can see, it gets louder, but when you hear it, it doesn't get as loud as it audibly sounds. So I'll just show you.
To the start.
You can see that the gain reduction actually just eliminates that problem of inconsistency in the volume, and that's what this compressor does. It just eliminates inconsistency and makes it consistent. That's why I use it for pretty much everything, especially the guitars. Sorry. Okay, so for this example, -17 dB, that's going to vary. Obviously, the attack is going to be 17 milliseconds, but that's a creative thing. You can just sort of work your way around that. But I can explain in a further tutorial how to use compression more precisely. I'm just running through what I have just for you guys to notice. And because I EQ'd the vocals with a really high trebly sound, I wanted that in the vocals and like the tonal qualities, but I didn't want that in the sibilance. And really, when you EQ treble up, you'll find that the sibilance becomes more annoying and essentially it clips. So a way to sort of reduce that is to either use a multi-band compressor and find that frequency, which the sibilance is generally around 5K or 6K, and in some cases with female singers it's more than that. But for this example, I just use a basic de-esser just to not confuse you guys, and all it does is that exactly what it does. It just de-esses the sound and eliminates its sibilance from clipping and just adds compression to that frequency. So if I go to somewhere where there's sibilance, I'll show you.
To the start, if life's too short.
So when the sibilance actually kicks in, it reduces it, and this is basically just a compressor with um, a specific frequency it targets. So that's all it is. The maximizer, and I just use this for for different purposes, but for this example, it's just to maintain the loudness of the track, so I don't have to boost the track up, an extra 6 dB because it's not loud enough. I just use the maximizer to maximize it, and this is a pretty good limiter as well. It's between a compressor and a limiter, so I don't really need to go about adding a limiter and compressor. It's just an all-in-one type thing, and it doesn't hard clip it or anything like that. It just softly limits it. And also I have, you guessed it, pitch correction. This is used almost 90% of the time in music, although I heard some Katy Perry tracks, which I really appreciate, don't use it at all. And you can really tell it's when somebody uses auto-tune because either it's really obvious or they're trying not to be obvious, and the tonal qualities are being shifted out of phase because of the pitch correction that's being applied. But I can get into more detail about that another time, I guess. Basically, I just went to what the general note was. It took me about half an hour to do all of these corrections, and some of them didn't even need to be corrected, like this red line here. These red lines don't really need to be corrected, but this was a really fast take, so he didn't really want the time to do the take. He had to go, and but generally speaking, you want to have a good singer, especially in tonal qualities, not in just pitch. You want a good singer. But it's almost masked in this recording itself. If you listen to the track, it almost sounds like there's no pitch correction whatsoever, and that's really the point of pitch correction. Whether you want to use it creatively like T-Pain, or you want to use it as a sort of masking of the ability to hit that pitch, which is Miley Cyrus in most cases. I guess that's what you want to do. So basically that's all I have for the main vocals. It applies the same for the BVs as well. If I go into the mixer, you'll see I'll have a guitar bus and vocal bus, and that is because it allows me to level them easier, especially because I have two guitars. One is hard pan to the left, one is hard pan to the right, and essentially they're both playing the exact same thing. So I have them in a bus. With the vocals, I have them all in a bus as well, especially the BVs. But if it's a big track, I'll want to put the BVs in a different, in a different bus. But it's not too bad in this recording. So, in the vocal bus, I have two effects. I have stereo delay, which I use in conjunction most of the time, and Roomworks, which is a reverb unit. And the reverb unit, there's really no trick here. It's just almost a 3-second decay. It's got 150 pre-delay, because I mostly use pre-delay with vocals or with hi-hats or snares or something like that. I almost always use a pre-delay. It's got a cutoff of 120, and it's got a cutoff of 10K. So it's a really sibilant but almost lower resonant reverb, and that's really what I was looking for, something that adds more dynamics to the resonance of the vocals, especially because this is a acoustic mix. It just makes it more interesting to have a stereo delay and a Roomworks delay, or a reverb delay I should say. But there's no trick to the stereo delay either. I just have a 1/4 delay synchronized to whatever tempo I'm at right now, 105, and I just have it set so there's not too much sibilance, which I take and I turn down to 7K on the high filter, and I have 100 on the low filter. Basically, the only thing that I did here was I just changed the synchronization, and I just made it from 1/4 to 575 milliseconds, which is 1/4, but just a bit off, so there's a bit more stereo to it, if you know what I mean. But I can get into more detail about that another time, and that's basically it for my vocal mastering tutorial. I hope you got something out of it, and if you have any more questions, let me know, and I have no objections to helping you guys out. So I hope that you got something out of it, and peace out.